The classroom was empty, but the board still whispered secrets in symbols and equations. The janitor, who mopped its floors every night, stared at the half-solved calculus problem left behind, not with confusion, but with longing. She tightened her grip on the mop handle. Who left this integral half-finished? And then she picked up the marker. Late evenings at Westridge Academy were sacred to Zuri Thompson, not because they were peaceful, not because they were easy, but because in the hush of the abandoned classrooms, long after entitled students and tired teachers had gone home, she could breathe. She wasn't just the janitor anymore. In those quiet hours, she became something else, someone else. The math on the boards didn't judge her uniform. The chalk didn't care that her hands were calloused. The equations recognized her. Zuri moved through the rows with her cleaning cart, her earbuds in, the soulful hum of Lauryn Hill filling her world. But she paused, just like always, when she reached room 304, Mr. Callahan's math classroom. The board was littered with symbols, half an equation on one side, a smugly scribbled, "Bet no one can solve this" underneath. Zuri smirked, lips curving just slightly. She glanced around, then reached for a dry erase marker. Her hand hovered before the board for a moment, almost reverent, and then fluid, confident. She wrote, step by step, line by line. The numbers danced under her fingers. When she was done, the problem wasn't just solved. It was beautifully solved, like art, like music, like the pieces of her past life she'd had to bury. She didn't expect applause. She didn't even expect to be seen. That's how it had always been. She erased the board every night, including her own genius, like she didn't exist. But that night, someone was watching. Earlier that day, the sun blazed over Westridge Academy, turning the ivory halls into blinding corridors of wealth and privilege. Students stepped out of luxury cars with designer bags, their laughter echoing like something out of a teen drama. Zuri, in her navy janitor uniform, pushed her cart quietly past them. No one saw her, or rather, they chose not to. But Ethan Blake noticed. He always did. Ethan wasn't like the others. Sure, he had the looks, hazel eyes, jawline sharp as geometry, trust fund aura, but there was something in him that didn't sit right with the silver spoon world. He looked at Zuri, not with pity, but curiosity, admiration. Even today she gave him the smallest of nods. That was new. His heart skipped, and he smiled. But he wasn't the only one watching. Inside room 304, Mr. Callahan was in rare form. He prowled the front of the class like a lion in tweed. He thrived on fear, confusion, and the sound of chalk scraping doom across the board. None of you will pass my midterms if you don't understand this, he snapped, scribbling an enormous integral on the board. Most students sighed, heads down, except Ethan. He watched the problem and noticed something that wasn't solvable, not the way it was written. Zuri entered with her mop bucket just as the bell rang. Students filtered out, some sneering at her, others brushing past like she was furniture. Mr. Callahan looked at her, eyes narrowing. You there, he said loudly, stopping her. Think you can clean up this mess? He gestured to the board, smirking. Or maybe even solve it. The class froze. Zuri looked up slowly, expression unreadable. A few students giggled nervously. Callahan chuckled to himself, already turning away. But Zuri stepped forward. She put down her mop, walked to the board, picked up the marker, and solved the impossible. In 10 seconds of stunned silence, she broke every assumption in that room. When she capped the marker and stepped back, Mr. Callahan's smug grin faded like chalk in rain. Ethan stared at her like he was seeing a secret unfold, like she was a riddle, and he wanted to learn every part of her. Later that evening, after everyone left, Zuri stood in the same room again, alone. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what she'd just done. Should have stayed quiet, she whispered to herself. No one likes a janitor who who thinks she's more than she is. But her heart, it fluttered, not just from what she'd proven, but from the way he had looked at her, not like a janitor, not like a joke, but like she mattered, and she hadn't felt that in a long, long time. She had spent years sweeping the floors of a school she once dreamed of attending. Now, the world was watching her outshine the very teachers who ignored her, and the boy with the soft hazel eyes, he was watching too, like she was the only answer he'd never learned to solve. The morning after Zuri solved the calculus problem, the halls of Westridge were buzzing, but not with gossip about the latest rich kid scandal, or the school's undefeated tennis team. No, today, the buzz had a name. Zuri, did you see the video? Wait, the janitor did that. She solved it faster than my tutor ever could. Is she like secretly a genius or something? Zuri, walking into the building with her head down and earbuds in, didn't realize the looks were different this time. They weren't ignoring her anymore. They were curious, some even impressed, but others, they were bitter, especially Mr. Callahan. Meanwhile, in the senior lounge, Ethan sat on the leather couch, his phone in hand. He'd watched the video 5 times that morning, each time more fascinated. It wasn't just how quickly Zuri had solved the problem, it was the calm in her eyes, the confidence she wore like armor, the way her voice, quiet as it was, silenced a room filled with power. He had questions, so many. Who was she? Where did she learn that? And why was someone like her here? His best friend Caleb looked over his shoulder. You're obsessed, bro. Ethan smirked, but there was no denial. I just think people like her don't belong on the sidelines. Back in the janitor's supply room, Zuri leaned against a shelf, her phone trembling in her hands. Someone had uploaded the video to TikTok, 300K views overnight. Comments ranged from "she's smarter than our teacher" to "mentee janitor in disguise." She didn't know whether to cry or hide. For years she had buried that part of herself, the girl who once dreamed of math competitions, scholarships, breakthroughs. She had chosen duty over dreams. After their parents' accident, her younger brother Malik had no one but her, so she dropped everything, men IT, full ride, future plans, and became what she needed to be, a provider, a cleaner, a ghost. And now, she wasn't invisible anymore, but visibility came with danger. What if this backfires? She whispered to herself. What if I lose this job too? A soft knock on the door startled her. She opened it to find Ethan standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee, the conversation that changed everything. Zuri blinked, cautious. Why are you here? He handed her one of the cups. You looked like someone who doesn't get nearly enough of this. She hesitated, then took it. Thanks. They stood in awkward silence for a moment, until he broke it. I saw the video. You were amazing. Zuri didn't meet his eyes. It was just math. No, it wasn't just math. It was grace, confidence, fire. His voice softened. Why are you hiding all that? Zuri looked away. Because people don't like it when someone like me shines too bright. Ethan stepped closer gently. I do. Those 3 words cracked something inside her. She'd been strong for so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen, to be admired without suspicion, to be safe. Why are you really here? She asked, voice almost a whisper. He smiled. Because I want to know you. Not the janitor, not the math prodigy, just you. Zuri blinked hard, heart stammering. She wasn't used to softness, but Ethan's presence, it didn't feel like pity. It felt like sunlight after a long storm. But not everyone was happy. Upstairs, Mr. Callahan slammed his laptop shut after reading the latest headline. Viral janitor outsmarts prestigious school teacher. Is Westridge hiding hidden talent? He stormed into the principal's office. This is outrageous. That woman, she's not even a part of the faculty. We can't let this circus continue. Principal Daniels rubbed his temples. We can't exactly undo the internet, Callahan. The school board has already reached out. Callahan sneered. Then I say we prove it was a fluke. Let's see if she can handle real pressure. A public test, something she'll fail. That evening, Zuri walked through the halls again, But everything had changed. Whispers followed her like shadows, some admiring, some mocking, some questioning what right she had to exist in their world. But when she reached room 304, Ethan was already there, waiting, not with questions, not with expectations, just a quiet smile and a fresh set of equations. "I thought maybe you'd teach me something." Zuri looked at the board, then at him, and for the first time in years, she felt it again, not fear, hope. They didn't want to celebrate her brilliance. They wanted to prove it was a fluke, one lucky moment, from a girl who should have stayed invisible. But what they didn't realize was, Zuri had spent her whole life preparing for impossible tests. Zuri stood in the middle of the principal's office, surrounded by polished wood, gold plaques, and tight-lipped authority. Principal Daniels adjusted his glasses, voice polite but hollow. "We'd like you to participate in a school-sponsored event, a friendly competition, just to clear the air." "Clear the air," she repeated slowly. "About what?" From the corner Mr. Callahan smirked. "There's been speculation, claims that the problem you solved wasn't that hard, that perhaps you'd seen it before." Zuri's jaw clenched. "I didn't cheat." "We're not accusing you," Daniels said quickly, though his tone said otherwise. "But you have to understand, this is a school. Reputation matters. If you really are gifted, then this competition will only highlight that." "Let me guess," she said looking at Callahan. "You'll be writing the problems." He grinned. "Naturally." Zuri's stomach twisted, but she didn't flinch. "When?" "This Friday," Daniels replied. "In the auditorium. Students, faculty, press, and maybe a few academic sponsors." "And what if I say no?" Callahan leaned forward, voice low. "Then maybe it's best if your employment is re-evaluated." Zuri felt the walls close in. They weren't giving her a choice. Later that day, she sat on the back steps of the school, head in her hands. The sun was beginning to set, casting golden shadows across the stone courtyard. Her thoughts spun like torn pages in a storm. She had survived so much: poverty, grief, responsibility, and now she was being punished for being brilliant. Her hands were shaking, not from fear of failure, but from the pain of being forced to prove herself again. "Hey," she looked up, and there he was, Ethan, golden hair tousled by wind, backpack slung lazily over his shoulder. But his eyes, they were intense today, angry. "I heard what they're making you do," he said. "It's wrong." Zuri exhaled, tried to laugh it off. "It's fine, just a test." "No, it's not," he said, sitting beside her. "It's a setup." She looked at him. "Why do you even care?" He hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Because I see you. I see how strong you are, how brilliant, and it kills me that they're trying to break you just because you don't fit their mold." She looked away, blinking fast. "Don't do that," he said softly. "Don't pull back." Zuri met his gaze, and this time, she didn't hide the storm behind her eyes. "People like me don't get second chances, Ethan. They just get stepped over, until they disappear. Then I won't let you disappear." Those words hit her harder than she expected, not because of the promise, but because he meant it. That night, Ethan sat in his room, papers spread around him, researching old calculus problems and theories, just trying to understand the world Zuri lived in. His phone buzzed. "Zuri, still awake?" He smiled. "Ethan, barely." "Why can't sleep either?" "Zuri, nope. Brain won't shut up. Thinking about integrals and sabotage." "Ethan, let's meet tomorrow after school. My place. My dad's out of town. You can teach me your secret math powers." "Zuri, only if you bring lemon tea, and don't look at me like I'm some miracle." "Ethan, too late." Her heart skipped as she stared at that last text, and for the first time in forever, she let herself smile. The next afternoon, in Ethan's house, Zuri sat cross-legged on a huge sofa, sipping lemon tea, while Ethan watched her scribble equations on his whiteboard wall. "God, you make it look like art," he whispered. Zuri glanced over her shoulder. "It is art, at least to me." Ethan stood beside her now, eyes not on the board, but on her. "You could change the world,
You know that. She turned toward him, heartbeat fluttering. I just want to survive this week. He stepped closer. You don't have to survive it alone. There it was again, that look, the one that stripped away years of invisibility, the one that made her feel more than seen, wanted. I'm scared, she admitted, voice fragile. Ethan reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. Then let me be brave for you. Her breath caught, and in that suspended moment, something passed between them, unspoken, electric. But she stepped back first, grounding herself. I can't afford distractions, she whispered. He nodded, voice quiet. Then I'll just stand beside you, as a friend, as whatever you need. Zuri looked at him, and deep down, she knew, he was already becoming what she needed most. Meanwhile, in Callahan's office, stacks of papers, diagrams, malicious intent. He scribbled furiously, crafting the most convoluted problems he could find. This wasn't a fair test, it was war. She wants a challenge, he muttered. She'll drown in it. Friday loomed like a storm cloud. But Zuri wasn't breaking, not this time, because someone believed in her now, not because of her brilliance, but because of her heart. They gave her a podium, not to raise her voice, but to watch her fall from it. What they didn't count on was the boy with fire in his eyes, standing up when everyone else stayed seated. The Westridge Auditorium had never been this full. Parents, students, faculty, local news reporters with cameras. A banner stretched across the stage, celebrating hidden talents, a friendly academic exhibition. But Zuri knew better. This wasn't a celebration, it was a trap dressed in school colors and fake applause, a public trial where failure was already expected, and every spotlight felt like a noose. She stood backstage, dressed in her cleanest uniform, no makeup, no jewelry, no armor, except her mind. Her hands gripped the edge of the curtain, her knees felt like glass. Then she heard the familiar voice, soft, steady, hers alone. You're not alone. She turned. Ethan, dressed casually, but with a quiet confidence that disarmed her. He handed her a small note card. She flipped it over. Just one sentence. You were never meant to be hidden. Her eyes glistened. Ethan. He smiled. Go show them why they should have never underestimated you. Zuri exhaled shakily and nodded. Then the doors opened. The lights rose. On stage, Principal Daniel spoke like a proud politician. Today we celebrate unexpected brilliance. Our very own Zuri Thompson has graciously accepted a challenge to solve a series of advanced calculus problems alongside our top students. A polite round of applause. Zuri stepped onto the stage. The lights were too hot. The crowd, a blur of judgment and whispers. She spotted Ethan in the third row, sitting forward, eyes locked on her. He gave her the tiniest nod. It helped her breathe. On the far side of the stage stood Mr. Callahan, smug in his seat, arms crossed. 3 hand-picked honor students flanked him. Zuri had seen them before. Sharp minds, sharper egos. Daniels raised his hand. You'll each receive identical problems, timed. The fastest correct solution wins each round. The first problem flashed on the screen. Zuri picked up the marker. Round 1, limits and continuity. Complex but solvable. Her hands moved quickly, her mind sharper than it had been in years. The audience watched in quiet awe as she beat the first student by nearly 20 seconds. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Callahan shifted in his chair. Round 2, advanced integrals. A trick question. Zuri caught the trick instantly. She rewrote the problem structure in her head and found a hidden solution. She finished just before the timer. The judge verified her work. Correct. The student beside her wasn't even halfway done. Applause grew louder. Zuri looked into the audience and saw something new. Respect. Round 3, differential equations. The hardest yet. Zuri blinked. Her hand trembled.
This one looked familiar.
Almost too familiar. Callahan's doing. A problem she'd once solved at MIT. During her brief time there, he'd stolen it from her past, trying to use her own brilliance against her. Her vision blurred. Suddenly she was 20 again, surrounded by Ivy League minds, a future in her grasp. And then it all crashed when she got the call. Your parents didn't make it. Tears threatened. Zuri. The voice broke through the fog. Ethan was standing in the middle of the crowd, staring right at her. You've done harder things than this. She breathed in, once, twice, and then she began to write, not just with logic, but emotion. Fluid, graceful lines, symbols that whispered defiance. When she finished, the room held its breath. Even Callahan looked stunned. The judge stood. Correct. Absolutely correct. Thunderous applause erupted. Some students stood. The cameraman swarmed. Zuri didn't move. Not until Ethan walked up the side stairs of the stage. Against protocol, ignoring the staff's shocked protests, he stood beside her. Close, certain. Then he reached for the microphone. Ethan's speech. I know this wasn't supposed to be a celebration. This was a setup, an ambush. A warning to anyone who dares to shine without permission. But Zuri Thompson just showed every one of us that talent doesn't wear labels, and brilliance doesn't ask for permission. She's not just a janitor. She's not just a viral video. She's the most intelligent person I've ever met. And for what it's worth, I'm proud to know her, to learn from her. And yeah, he turned to her, heart in his eyes. I think I'm falling for her. The audience gasped. Whispers flew. Cameras clicked. Zuri froze, then turned to him slowly. You're not just saying that for the cameras, are you? He grinned. Cameras don't matter. You do. For a heartbeat, everything vanished. The stage, the eyes, the lights, just her, just him, and something inside her, something long buried, opened. She didn't kiss him, not yet, but she reached for his hand, and didn't let go. Backstage, Callahan stormed off, livid. His plan had failed, but out there, a queen had risen from the shadows. She'd fought to be seen, to be heard, to be free. But the world wasn't done testing her yet, because just when she finally touched the life she'd buried, her past came knocking with tear-stained hands, and a decision that could cost her everything. It had been 24 hours since the auditorium shook with applause. Zuri hadn't slept, not out of anxiety, but wonder. For the first time in years, she'd felt alive, respected, loved. Maybe, she didn't dare say it out loud, not yet. Her phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. Miss Thompson, this is Dr. Lila Chin, department chair at Westbridge University. I watched your performance. Would love to speak to you about a scholarship and mentorship opportunity. Can we meet tomorrow? Zuri stared at the message, tears quietly forming in her eyes. It wasn't just a chance. It was the door she thought had closed forever, cracking back open. She texted back with trembling fingers. Yes, I'd be honored. Later that evening, at Ethan's apartment, Zuri sat curled up on the oversized chair, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. A fire flickered gently beside them.
Ethan handed her a blanket and a mug of warm cinnamon tea. You okay? He asked, kneeling beside her. Zuri nodded slowly, though her eyes said otherwise. I should be. I mean, this is everything I wanted, right? He studied her. But, she exhaled, I'm scared. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not good enough anymore? Zuri, he whispered, taking her hand gently. You walked into a room built to humiliate you, and you lit it on fire with your brilliance. You make it sound easier than it was. I know it wasn't. That's what makes it amazing. She looked down at their hands, intertwined now, like the fear she always carried had slowly been replaced with warmth. He leaned closer. Tell me what you're feeling. The truth. Her eyes met his, dark and deep, like quiet storms. I feel like I'm still waiting for it to be taken away. Ethan cupped her cheek with careful fingers. Then I'll stand right here and keep reminding you, it's yours. You earned every second of this. You don't owe anyone silence anymore. The tear slipped from her cheek. Even if I'm not the girl people want me to be, you're exactly the girl I want. Their foreheads touched. Not a kiss, just closeness, safety. the beginning of something real. The next day, at Westbridge University, the campus was everything Zuri remembered from her one brief visit years ago. Ivy-covered walls, sharp minds, and rooms that smelled like ambition and possibility. Dr. Lila Chen greeted her with a firm handshake and a soft smile. Zuri Thompson, the woman who shut down a whole school with a marker. Zuri blushed. It wasn't meant to be dramatic, it was revolutionary. And people like you. Dr. Chen's eyes gleamed. We need you in classrooms, not cleaning them. She slid a folder across the table. We're offering you a full scholarship to complete your degree, with mentorship, housing, and a teaching assistant position to help with costs. Zuri stared at it. It was real. But then, her mind flashed with an image of Malik, her 13-year-old brother. Homework spread across the kitchen table, their small apartment, bills, groceries, his shoes with the worn soles. I have someone depending on me, she said quietly. My little brother. I can't just disappear into academia and forget about real life. Dr. Chen nodded, understanding. Then let's work with you. Bring him with you. We have housing for families. We have scholarships for dependents. Zuri, we want you, all of you. For the first time, Zuri felt the fear slowly unravel. She whispered, "Okay, I'll do it." That night, back at home, Zuri returned to their apartment late. The lights were off. Malik was asleep on the couch, textbook still open on his chest. She sat beside him, brushing his hair back gently. "I did it, baby boy," she whispered. "We're gonna be okay." But just as she turned to go to her room, there was a knock at the door. 3 soft taps. She opened it, only to freeze. A man stood in the hallway, older, tired eyes, weathered coat. "Dad," she whispered, heart dropping. "I heard about the girl with the genius mind on the news," he said hoarsely. "Didn't realize she'd still have my last name." Zuri's blood turned to ice. "You don't get to come back now." "I know," he said, "but I'm dying, and I need to tell you the truth about what happened when your mother died." Moments later, Ethan arrived. Zuri was sitting on the floor, knees to her chest. "What happened?" he asked gently. "My father showed up." Ethan sat beside her. "Do you want him in your life?" "I don't know," she whispered. "He left us, and now just when I finally get a chance to breathe, he shows up with his ghosts." He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "Whatever you decide, you don't have to carry it alone. I'm here." Zuri rested her head against his shoulder. "I'm tired of always being the strong one," she murmured. "Then be soft with me, just for tonight." Then for the first time in her life, she let herself cry into someone's arms. "You can't build your future if your past still owns the keys." Zuri thought she'd buried her pain, but grief has a long memory, and love shows up even when you try to push it away. Morning crept slowly into the apartment, gray and quiet. Zuri stood at the stove, mechanically stirring oatmeal. Malik was still asleep in the next room, his soft breathing the only sign of peace in her world. But inside her, turbulence. Her father's arrival had torn open a wound she thought was scarred over. Then now, it throbbed with old confusion, abandonment, and betrayal. The knock on the door the night before had echoed louder than she wanted to admit. The conversation haunted her. Her father's voice, rough like gravel. "Your mother didn't die the way you think. I left because I was blamed for things I didn't do. I wanted to come back, but pride kept me away. And then, it was too late." Zuri had stood frozen, arms crossed over her chest, eyes wet but hard. She didn't believe him, but a part of her wanted to, needed to. "You were just a girl," he'd said, "and you became the woman I failed to be." That had hurt more than anything, because it was true. She became the protector, the provider, the survivor, alone. That afternoon, she sat in Ethan's car, parked near the river. The water shimmered silver under a cloudy sky. A storm was coming. "I haven't told you everything,"
she said, her voice barely above the hum of the engine. Ethan looked at her, eyes soft. You don't have to, not until you're ready. She shook her head. I need to. He turned the engine off and waited. Zuri stared ahead, hands clenched in her lap. When I was 17, my mom died in a car crash. My dad was driving. There was talk, rumors about drinking, about abuse. CPS stepped in. He disappeared before the investigation was even over. Ethan didn't speak, just listened. I dropped out of MIT a year later when Malik was 10. He was lost. I couldn't let him go into the system, so I took whatever jobs I could. Janitor, cleaner. I buried my dreams because his life mattered more. She turned to Ethan now, eyes filled with grief she'd never spoken aloud. I didn't want anyone's help, especially not from someone who'd see me as a project. His voice was barely a whisper. Is that what you think I see? I did, she said, but now, I think you see everything, even the parts I don't want anyone to. Ethan leaned closer, slowly, cautiously. I don't just see you, Zuri. I feel you. I'm in awe of you. And she placed a finger to his lips, shaking her head. Not yet, she whispered. He nodded, lips brushing her fingertip, before she pulled away. That night, Zuri went to her mother's grave, alone. She sat on the grass, knees pulled to her chest, a bouquet of wildflowers in her lap. I'm sorry it took me so long, she whispered, but I'm finally doing it, Mom. I'm going back to school, to the life you wanted for me. A tear slid down her cheek. And I met someone, she said, voice cracking. He makes me feel like I don't have to carry everything by myself, and that scares me more than any test ever did. Wind brushed her skin like a soft embrace. She smiled through tears. I think you'd like him. Later that night, at Ethan's apartment, Zuri knocked softly. He opened the door, surprised, but then his expression softened when he saw her. She stepped inside, saying nothing. He closed the door behind her. Zuri turned to him, eyes glossy. Can I just stay here tonight? Not talk, not think, just exist. Ethan stepped forward, brushed her cheek with the back of his hand. As long as you need. He led her to the couch, wrapped her in a blanket, turned off the lights. They lay there, her head against his chest, his hand stroking her curls. After a long silence, she whispered into the dark, I'm tired of being strong all the time. He kissed the top of her head. Then I'll be strong for both of us. Hours passed. Thunder rumbled. Rain tapped gently on the windows. And in that quiet shelter something shifted. Zuri reached up, her fingers touching his jaw, her heart pounding. And this time, she kissed him. Slow, soft, sincere. It wasn't a kiss of fireworks. It was a kiss of finally. She walked into the classroom not as a janitor, but as a student, a scholar, a flame that wouldn't dim. But just as she began to breathe again, the world whispered, how dare someone like her dream this loud? The first day of classes at Westbridge University felt like standing on the edge of the unknown. Zuri stood outside the building, her backpack slung over one shoulder, the breeze catching the edge of her notebook. Her fingers were trembling, less from fear, more from disbelief. It was real. After all the years of mopping floors, putting Malik first, folding her dreams into back pockets, she was here, not cleaning the lecture halls, sitting in them. That doubt still clung to her like static. Was she too late, too different, too much? She walked into the classroom. Eyes followed her, some curious, some cold. She wasn't like them, not just because of her age or background, but because she carried her journey in every breath, every step. She took her seat near the front. The professor, Dr. Morris, called roll. Zuri Thompson. She raised her hand. He glanced up, paused. You're the Zuri Thompson, a few students whispered, behind their hands. She felt heat rush to her cheeks. Welcome, Dr. Morris said, smiling faintly. We've been waiting for you. The words surprised her, softened her. Maybe this wouldn't be a battlefield after all. But outside the classroom, there were murmurs. Some resented her, called called her a pity admit, a viral gimmick. Imagine getting in just for solving one equation. A girl scoffed as Zuri walked past. Zuri heard it. She didn't flinch, but it stayed with her. Later that evening, Ethan waited for her at the campus cafe. He stood when she walked in, pulling out a chair. "There's my genius." Zuri gave a tired smile, setting down her books. Day 1, imposter syndrome level 99. He slid a coffee toward her. "You belong there more than any of them." She stirred it in silence. "Do I?" He leaned forward, taking her hand. "Zuri, you earned this. With grit, not connections. With brilliance, not privilege. That's what scares them." She looked up into his eyes. Warm, sure, grounding. "And what about you?" she asked softly. "Does any of this scare you?" His thumb brushed hers. "Only one thing scares me." "What?" "Losing you." Her breath caught. "I know you're growing," he added. "I know this next chapter might change things. But I don't care if you fly higher than I can reach. Just don't shut me out when you do." Zuri's heart twisted, because the truth was, she'd spent so long doing everything alone. It terrified her to trust someone enough to let them stay. But Ethan wasn't asking for control. He was asking for a place beside her, and that made all the difference. Meanwhile, back at home, Malik sat on the couch, reading. He flipped through a science book, one Zuri had bought for him before she ever applied to school. But then the door rattled. He opened it cautiously. Their father stood in the hallway again, pale, hollow-eyed. "I'm not here to make trouble," he said gently. "I just want to talk. I want to try." Malik hesitated. "Zuri wouldn't want this." "I know, but I don't have long, son." The next day, just as Zuri stepped out of class, her phone rang. "Malik." Her chest tightened. "Zuri came by again." "Did he touch you?" "No, just talked. Said he wants to make things right." Zuri felt her world start to tilt. Just as she was settling into this new beginning, the past was clawing at her door again. That night, she stood on the roof of Ethan's apartment, the city lights behind her. He joined her in silence, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for all this," she admitted. "You are," he said simply. "I've built my life on survival, but now I'm being asked to live, and that's so much harder." He turned her to face him. "You don't have to do it all at once. Just start with this." He kissed her, slow, sincere, like a promise kept. She melted into him, her fingers knotting into his jacket, her doubts momentarily drowned by the warmth between them. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Then, her phone buzzed again. An email from the university. "You urgent media attention regarding Zuri Thompson's admission. Concerns raised over fairness and merit. We will be scheduling a meeting with the Academic Integrity Committee." Her fingers froze. Zuri's chest tightened. Even here, even now, she wasn't safe. At this time, she wasn't facing it alone. They called her here to prove she belonged, that she didn't need permission anymore. Zuri had earned her place in this world, and this time, she wouldn't shrink to make others feel comfortable. Not for a school, not for a father, not even for fear. Zuri sat outside the heavy oak doors of the Academic Integrity Committee room, her fingers ice cold, despite the warm spring afternoon. Inside were 5 faculty members, 3 student reps, and her entire future on the line. The email had been blunt. "Concerns have been raised regarding the process of your admission, including the fairness of opportunities provided based on a viral video. Translation: you're making too many waves, and some people want you gone." She hadn't told Ethan she was doing this alone. She needed to walk in without his hand in hers, not because she didn't want it, but because she needed to feel her own strength again. For so long she'd been the girl behind the mop, the sister behind the smile, the woman behind the wound. But today, she was done hiding. Inside, the atmosphere was sharp and sterile. Dr. Chen sat at the end of the panel, eyes supportive but neutral. She had fought to get Zuri in. Now she wasn't allowed to interfere. Professor Arnold, however, the same one who had once told a black scholarship student he spoke too boldly, was leading the charge. "Miss Thompson," he said without even looking up. Do you believe that solving one problem in public justifies your spot at this university? Zuri kept her voice steady. No, but I believe my life does. There was a pause. She continued, eyes meeting every pair across from her. I wasn't given this opportunity because I went viral. I was given it because I've been proving myself for 10 years in silence, solving problems in empty rooms, raising a child alone, fighting systems designed to make girls like me disappear. Someone shifted uncomfortably. She didn't stop. I didn't take a spot from anyone. I earned mine. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then maybe you're finally starting to understand how it feels to walk through this world as me. Silence. Heavy. Tense. Until Dr. Chen finally spoke. Thank you, Miss Thompson. You may go. Zuri stood slowly, spine straight, and when she walked out, she didn't. She felt like a student. She felt like a revolution. Outside, she found Ethan waiting at the campus gate. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He just wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close until her forehead pressed into his chest. I told you, he whispered. You didn't need to prove anything to them. I needed to prove it to myself, she murmured. He tilted her chin up. Did you? She nodded, tears building. Yeah, I did. Later that night, she walked into her apartment to find Malik sitting across from their father. The tension in the room was electric. Her father stood quickly when he saw her. I didn't come to fight, he said, only to say goodbye. Zuri crossed her arms, staying near the door. Zuri crossed her arms, staying near the door. Why now? I'm dying, he said plainly. Doctors said 6 months, maybe less. Zuri's throat closed. She hated him for still having power over her heart. I didn't come back to fix everything, he continued. I came to ask for your forgiveness, not for me, but for you, so you don't carry my mistakes like they're your own. Zuri stared at him, and in that moment, she saw not the monster she had painted in her mind, but a broken man, haunted, hollow human. She walked forward, slowly. I can't give you what you want today, she whispered, but I'll try. He nodded, and then he left, not with victory, not with absolution, but with a seed of grace. That same night, Zuri showed up at Ethan's door again. This time, not shaken, not broken, but whole. He opened it, surprised. You okay? She didn't speak. She just stepped into his arms, kissed him, like the storm had passed, and like he had been her shelter all along. They moved like gravity had been waiting for them to stop resisting. Clothes fell away. Walls fell faster. For the first time in her life, she wasn't surviving. She was living. The next morning, wrapped in blankets and sunbeams, she whispered, I'm scared of needing you. Ethan kissed her shoulder gently. Then let me teach you that needing someone isn't weakness. She turned to face him, heart finally open. And if I fall, he smiled, then I'll fall with you. She spent years cleaning other people's dreams off the floor. Now she was walking in her own, and as the world finally looked at her with awe, Zuri Thompson smiled, because she no longer needed their permission to shine. 6 months later, the university courtyard was glowing in late summer light. Students lounged on benches, books in hand, laughter in the air. Life pulsed through West Bridge with the quiet electricity of promise. Zuri walked across campus, not as a visitor, not as a janitor, but as a lecturer. She had been invited to co-teach an advanced calculus seminar as a teaching assistant while completing her degree, and every time she stepped into the lecture hall, she saw her reflection in the front row, in the wide eyes of girls who didn't believe they belonged, until they saw her. At home, Malik flourished. He joined a science club, won a regional math award, started calling Zuri Professor Zit around the house. He didn't know it, but every time he laughed, every time he laughed, every time he came home safe and curious and free, it healed something deep inside her. She hadn't just saved herself, she'd broken a cycle. Ethan was still her calm in the storm. Their love had deepened, matured. It wasn't always perfect. Some days were loud, some days were quiet, but every day, he showed up, with coffee, with patience, with arms that held her without needing to fix her. One night, after a long study session, they lay on the couch in silence. I used to think love was something I couldn't afford, Zuri whispered, like a luxury for people who didn't have to survive. Ethan kissed her forehead. You didn't just survive, Zuri. You became limitless. The letter came unexpectedly. It was from the dean's office. You have been nominated to deliver the keynote speech at the annual Women in STEM conference. We believe your story will inspire generations of students to come. Zuri held the letter to her chest and closed her eyes. She didn't cry. She just smiled. The night of the speech, she stood behind the podium, hundreds of faces staring back at her. Ethan sat in the front row, Malik beside him, straightening his tie every 5 seconds. She looked out at them, at the young women clutching notebooks, waiting for wisdom, and she began. There was a time I cleaned classrooms like this, a time I erased answers I wasn't allowed to give, a time when I believed brilliance only mattered if the world allowed it to shine. But I was wrong. You don't wait for permission to take up space. You build your own table, and you bring others with you. Because success isn't just about arriving, it's about reaching back and saying, you can too. Tears glistened in eyes across the room. Some stood, others just nodded, clutching every word like oxygen. Zuri stepped back from the mic, and in that thunderous standing ovation, she didn't feel like a symbol. She felt like Zuri, whole, free, powerful. Later that night, on the rooftop, where it all began, Ethan brought her a slice of cake and whispered, for my keynote queen. She laughed, barefoot and glowing under the stars. He pulled her close. I have one more surprise. She raised an eyebrow. He pulled a velvet box from his pocket, but inside wasn't a ring. It was a silver pendant shaped like an equation, the very one she solved the night her life changed. She held it in trembling hands. This is the equation that made them see you, he said, but I saw you way before that. She looked up at him, heart full. I'm not ready for marriage yet, she said softly. He smiled. Good, I'm not proposing. She blinked. Because I want to love you without deadlines, without expectations, just as we are, every day. She leaned into him, wrapping her arms around his neck. Then you already have everything I'd say yes to. Final scene. Zuri walks through the halls of Westbridge. Students part, smiling. Some whisper her name, like a legend. She enters her classroom. On the board, she writes just one sentence. You belong here, just like I do. She turns to the class with a soft smile. Let's begin.